Liberalism. Section. The extensive Herod-like kidnappings. Among the compulsory labor force called on to ensure the development of the colonies were also youngsters of poor condition, deceived with honeyed words, abducted and deported across the Atlantic. Alternatively, they arrived in America with their parents, who were often compelled to sell them, never seeing them again. The situation of children of popular extraction was not much better in England. Marx denounced the, quote, extensive Herod-like kidnappings perpetrated in the early days of the factory system, when children were stolen from the workhouses and orphanages, and capital thereby incorporated a mass of unresisting human material. End quote. Going beyond the use of orphanages as a source of low-cost and more or less compulsory labor, we can make a general observation here. If, in the proto-liberal theory and practice of the time, the wage labor was, as we shall soon see, the instrumentum vocale Burke mentions, or the bipedal machine referred to by Sieyès, his children were ultimately res nullius, destined to be used at the first opportunity precisely in their capacity as work tools and machines. Locke explicitly declared that poor children, who were to be sent to work from the age of 3, must, quote, be taken off their parents' hands, end quote. Over a century later, Bentham's attitude was not dissimilar. He invited people to look for inspiration to, quote, manufactures where children down to 4 years old earn something, and where children a few years older earn a subsistence, and that a comfortable one, end quote. It was permissible and beneficial to, quote, take the children out of the hands of their parents as much as possible, and even, if possible, altogether, end quote. There should be no hesitation. Beginning of longer quote. You may even clap them up in an inspection house, and then you make of them what you please. You need never grudge the parents a peep behind the curtain in the master's lodge. You might keep up a 16 or 18 years separation between the male and female part of your young subjects. End quote. The children of the poor were at the complete disposal of society. We are reminded of the fate reserved for slaves across the Atlantic. To end their presence on American soil, suggested Jefferson, one might, at a moderate price, and perhaps even gratis, acquire newborn blacks, place them, quote, under the guardianship of the state, subject them to work as soon as possible, and thus largely recover the expenses required for their deportation to San Domingo, which should be set in train when convenient. Certainly, quote, the separation of infants from their mothers would produce some scruples of humanity, end quote, but there was no need to be so fussy. While he was motivated by economic calculations rather than worries about racial purity, Bentham would have liked to proceed perhaps even more ruthlessly with the children of the poor in England. Quote, an inspection house to which a set of children had been consigned from their birth might afford experiments enough. What say you to a foundling hospital upon this principle? End quote. We shall see that Bentham also envisaged experiments of a eugenic character. But for now, we can reach a conclusion by attending to an English economist, Edward G. Wakefield, who in 1834 published a successful book devoted to the contrast between England and America. Quote, it is the whole process of England, not I, that calls English children of popular extraction slaves. End quote. The majority were compelled to work such long hours that they inadvertently fell asleep, only to be awoken and forced back to work with beatings and torments of every kind. As to foundlings, they were dispensed with rapidly enough. Adverts were affixed to the doors of workhouses promoting their sale. In London, the price of male and female children put on the market thus was significantly below that of black slaves in America. In rural regions, such commodities were even cheaper. End section.